Hi everyone. It's a great pleasure for me to kick off BIC's Investor Insight podcast series today by welcoming Chester Twigg, BIC Chief Commercial Officer, to talk about the 2021 back to school season. Our goal today is to provide you insights on this year's back to school season in Europe, North America, and Mexico, as well as to address questions on consumer demand, channel shifts, and BIC's performance in the marketplace. Chester, first of all, thank you for being with us today. We all know how important the back to school season is for BIC's human expression division, and particularly our core stationery category. So it's definitely a hot topic everyone wants to hear about. So before we dive into details on 2021 trends, could you tell us how much of BIC stationery business back to school represents for each region?
Thank you, Sophie. It's a pleasure to be here and to help our audience better understand this critical business period for BIC. The weight of back to school on BIC sell-in, which is sales to our customers, varies, of course, from region to region. In Europe, it makes up slightly less than 50% of our annual core stationery net sales on average. It's generally a little bit more in the US and even more in Mexico, where our back to school represents more than two-thirds of stationery in net sales. For reference, most of these orders and shipments are made during the second quarter of the year and in early July, before the implementation of back to school planograms in stores. From a sell-out perspective, back to school runs from the beginning of July until about mid-September. Mexico and the US start a bit earlier than Europe, though.
So before we move to 2021, let's take a step back to 2020. As you may all remember, back to school was very challenging given the state of the global pandemic and remote schooling. So, Chester, how did we fare in 2021 compared to 2020? Did the market bounce back to the pre-pandemic levels?
Well, 2021 was, of course, the first post-lockdown back to school. And we all, of course, went in with the key question, are consumers going to come back into stores and make their purchases there? And the answer is a resounding yes. People have returned to in-store shopping. We haven't recovered yet to 2019 levels, except in the US, but the results are very encouraging. In all our regions, we saw consumers happy to return to physical stores along with their kids, which is so important to the back to school business for a few reasons. For example, impulse purchasing is higher in stores than online because children are more likely to accompany a parent. We also know that children influence is strong when it comes to buying stationery supplies. More than 70% of parents say their children are involved in the purchase process. More importantly for BIC, value and quality at a good price remain the key purchase criteria for shoppers across the globe this year as well. We also saw a trend to more branded products everywhere, including in the BIC brand, which continued to be the loved brand for millions of children, students, and their parents. So let's look a little bit more closely at how that played out in our key countries. In France, the market saw a low single-digit increase, with rollers and gels, correction tapes, mechanical pencils, and highlighters driving the growth. The UK market was flat, with gel pens up low single digits at the expense of ball pens. Coloring products outperformed the overall market, with felt tip markers and crayons up double digit, confirming the continuous trend towards creativity, which is at the core of our Horizon plan, as you know. While both markets remain slightly below 2019 levels overall, gel pens and coloring products have edged up versus pre-pandemic levels 2 years ago. A high note was in the US, where the market recovery was outstanding. The overall market increased close to 30% compared to last year, and more importantly, grew low single digits versus 2 years ago, 2019. All segments contributed to this strong performance. Gel, highlighters, dry wipe led the growth with a more than 30% increase. The ball pen segment grew at double digit, and similar to Europe, coloring products continued to outperform the overall market. Lastly, in Mexico, we recovered sharply compared to the very weak season we saw last year, driven by the finally reopening of classrooms. The overall stationery market grew more than 20% year to year. All segments contributed, including ball pens, pencils, and coloring, which are the country's three largest segments.
Well, sounds like good news overall. So tell me, how did BIC perform vis-a-vis market context?
Well, to begin with, our best performing countries were Mexico and the UK. In Mexico, we gained 1.9 points value share overall and outperformed in pens and coloring, our priority segments. This is an important milestone for BIC because, as you may remember, the previous 2 years were challenging with an environment that was rendered intensely competitive by low-cost players. This year's strong performance was driven by significant improvement in in-store visibility, resulting in an almost 50% share of shelf for BIC. In the UK, we outperformed the market by more than 2.5 points in value. This was driven by increased listings across retailers and incremental distribution within existing listings. We outperformed in ball pens, graphite pencils, and coloring. Consistent with our Horizon plan, we strengthened our presence in the growing art and creative segments thanks to our renewed BIC intensity markers. We also maintained our leadership position in France thanks to a strong performance in the ball pen segment. And surprisingly, for anyone who ever attended a French school, our BIC 4-color pen continues to be the star of back-to-school season in France. More importantly, our intensity felt pen range grew almost 25%, a tribute to our Horizon strategy. As anticipated, BIC's market performance was soft in the US, and product availability issues and other challenges in the market prevented us from taking our natural share of the market increase. Our teams are working very hard for the return to reliability that our customers require and have also started to prepare for the next season already. While we did achieve high single-digit growth in value, we lost more than 2 points of market share over the 2021 back-to-school season. This decline was seen across all segments with the exception of correction tape. In this segment, our performance received a boost from our new BIC Revolution Sustainable Development range. The success of this innovative line of products confirms we can drive additional value when we align our innovation to the needs and desires of consumers, and in this specific case, environmental benefits.
Great. So you mentioned the BIC Revolution range of product, which launched this year in the US. More generally, have you noticed an increase in consumer demand for product with clear and compelling sustainability benefits?
Well, I think you have to break it down a little. The answer is definitely yes. In mature countries like the US and Europe, we see this effect a bit less in Mexico due to lower disposable income, especially given the post-pandemic context. One of the most advanced countries is France, where 51% of consumers are willing to pay a premium for stationery products that are environmentally friendly. Our teams did a good job leveraging these trends this year with an innovative advertising campaign highlighting our circular economy. The program called BIC Ubiquity, which transforms the used pens we collect at recycling points into outdoor furniture. This campaign was well received by our retailers and was extended post back to school by some of our largest customers. As you just mentioned, we also launched BIC Revolution in the US this year. This is an eco-friendly range of stationery products made of at least 50% recycled plastic. I'm certain that offering a large eco-friendly range of products will be a key competitive advantage in the years to come. Thanks to our ambitious commitments to non-virgin petroleum plastic, BIC is well positioned to take the lead within the stationery industry on this topic. As you may remember, BIC aimed at 50% non-virgin petroleum plastic in its products by 2030.
Well, thank you. Very interesting. So back to school shopping habits are historically associated with in-store shopping. However, online shopping is becoming an increasingly important channel for the consumers. So what can you tell us about e-commerce trends in 2021?
Yes, you're absolutely right. E-commerce has definitely become a key aspect of the back to school season, and social media has begun to play an important role in back to school purchase considerations as well. In the US, pure e-commerce channels accounted for more than 15% of the total stationery market during the 2021 back to school season. To put this number in perspective, this represents a 13% increase compared to 2020. More importantly, because lockdowns last year skewed the numbers, it's a more than 40% jump compared to 2019. We also committed to a number one brand position online in France, gaining 2.5 points market share in the UK as well. We gained more than 6 points of market share. The success was driven by largely visible merchandising placements on the retailers' websites and targeted investments in digital media.
I know that promotional activities are key during back to school season. So how did it compare to 2020? And also, can you tell us a little bit about overall pricing?
Yes, Sophie, we certainly increased levels of promotion activity from the unique situation we saw in 2020. But there hasn't been any intense activity, and prices were mostly flat, with slight increases here and there driven by the category mix. We've seen some temporary price reductions from competitors in France, but total market prices for writing instruments posted low single-digit increases. Turning to the US, everyday prices were overall flat, and the positive pricing has been driven again by the mix of products and reduced promotions from major players.
Thank you. That was extremely interesting, Chester. And once again, thank you for joining us today. Maybe to conclude this podcast, you can give us your takeaways, your key takeaways of this 2021 back to school season from the market, and maybe more importantly for BIC.
Thanks, Sophie, and it was great chatting with you. The first thing I would highlight is that after 18 long months of mobility constraints, the back to school season took place in person with consumers returning reliably to physical stores, almost everywhere. This is key for the future of the category. And from a product perspective, the fact that high value items and coloring outperformed in most regions confirms the value of BIC's choice to focus on these segments with its Horizon strategy. Our ambition is to grow in coloring and creative expression, and this year's back to school performance demonstrates we can and will succeed. Overall, 2021 back to school confirmed that we can maintain and strengthen our leadership position in this industry through innovative offers and an endless focus on consumer needs. This, after all, is the core of our Horizon strategy.
Chester, thank you. Thank you for taking the time and being with us today.
Thanks, Sophie, and I'm looking forward to another terrific back to school in 2022, and hopefully we can talk about that soon as well.
With great pleasure. Thank you.